On a small island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, far from the forests of West Africa, an old woman died in her sleep in the autumn of 1921. She was a farmer's daughter who became a queen, a grandmother who became a general. The British called her a rebel. Her people called her Nana. And for 20 years, she had waited on a distant shore, watching the horizon for a homecoming that never came in her lifetime. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa, and before the world buried her in silence, she led an empire to war. The Ashanti Empire had ruled the gold-rich forests of what is now Ghana for more than 2 centuries. It was a civilization of extraordinary sophistication, a centralized state with a complex bureaucracy, a powerful army, and a spiritual constitution anchored by one of the most sacred objects in African history, the Golden Stool. According to tradition, the stool had descended from heaven in a cloud of dust at the command of Asantewaa, the great priest, landing in the lap of the first Ashanti king, Yaa Asantewaa. It was not a throne to sit upon, it was the soul of the nation, the embodiment of Ashanti unity, a repository of the spirit and sovereignty of an entire people. No one ever sat on it. No one ever would. Yaa Asantewaa was born around 1840 in the town of Basis, in the Edwaso state of the Ashanti Empire. She was of the Asona clan, a royal lineage, but her parents were farmers, Atapo and Kwaku Ampoma, who worked the land. She grew up cultivating crops in the fields around Bokra, learning the rhythms of the earth that would stay with her all her life. She was tall, nearly 5 feet 10 inches, with a powerful frame and a presence that commanded attention. She married Owusu Kwabena, a grandson of the Golden Stool, a man of royal blood. They had one child, a daughter named Amasewa, who in turn gave Yaa Asantewaa a grandson, Kofi Teen. When Yaa Asantewaa's brother, Nana Akwasi Afrain Okpace, became the chief of Edwaso, he appointed her queen mother, a position of profound influence in the matrilineal Ashanti system. As queen mother, she was responsible for advising the king, safeguarding the Golden Stool, and selecting candidates for the throne. She was not merely a ceremonial figure. She was a kingmaker. But the Ashanti world was crumbling. The British had been encroaching on the Gold Coast for decades, fighting a series of brutal wars against the empire. In 1874, during the reign of King Karakari, British forces marched on Kumasi, the Ashanti capital. They burned the royal palace to the ground, looted the treasures accumulated over generations, and left the seat of the monarchy in ashes. The Ashanti fought back, but the pressure never relented. By 1896, the British had finally captured the Ashanti king, Prempeh I, and deported him into exile on the Seychelles Islands along with the Queen Mother's beloved grandson, Kofi Teen, and much of the Ashanti government. The Golden Stool itself vanished into hiding, spirited away by loyal priests before the British could seize it. For 4 years, the Ashanti simmered under British occupation. Then, in March 1900, the British governor of the Gold Coast, Sir Frederick Hodgson, arrived in Kumasi with an entourage and demanded a meeting with the remaining chiefs. He announced that the Ashanti would have to pay an annual tribute of 4,000 ounces of gold. And then he made a fatal error. He demanded the Golden Stool. He wanted to sit on it himself. The chiefs were assembled in a secret meeting that night. The men argued. Some counseled submission. The British had Maxim guns and 1,000 soldiers. Others were too afraid to speak. As the debate disintegrated into despair, Yaa Asantewaa rose to her feet. She was 60 years old, a grandmother, a woman in a council of men. And she cut through their fear like a blade. "Now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king," she said. "If it were in the brave days of Osei Tutu, Okomfo Anokhi, and Opoka, chiefs would not sit down to see their king taken away without firing a shot. No European could have dared speak to chiefs of Ashanti the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the bravery of Ashanti is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be." I must say this, if you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight till the last of us falls on the battlefield. The council was electrified. The men, shamed and inspired, chose Yaa Asantewaa as the war leader of the Ashanti fighting force. It was the first and only time in Ashanti history that a woman held that role. She was 60 years old. She had never commanded an army in her life. And she accepted without hesitation. Within days, an army of thousands began gathering across the Ashanti states. Farmers became soldiers. Women mobilized as fighters, spies, and supply carriers. The British fought in Kumasi, a stone compound 50 yards square with 12-foot loopholed walls and Maxim guns mounted on its turrets, became the target. On April 28, 1900, Yaa Asantewaa's forces struck. The Ashanti warriors surrounded the fort with 21 log barricades, each 6 feet high, stretching for hundreds of yards, so thick that British artillery could not break them. They cut the telegraph wires. They blockaded all food supplies. The 18 Europeans, the colonial administrators, and the 500 Hausa soldiers trapped inside found themselves besieged by an enemy that refused to retreat. Yaa Asantewaa herself rode among her troops on horseback, rallying them, directing their movements, a warrior queen in the tradition of the Ashanti Empire's most legendary generals. The siege stretched on for months. The British sent relief columns from the coast. They were ambushed, cut down, driven back. Governor Hodgson and his wife cowered inside the fort as supplies dwindled, as disease spread, as the Ashanti snipers picked off anyone who showed their head above the walls. The British had the guns. But Yaa Asantewaa had the forest, the fury of a wounded nation, and the knowledge that she was fighting for something the British could never understand, not gold, not land, but the soul of a people. But empires do not fall easily. In June, a British column of 700 reinforcements finally fought its way through the barricades. More arrived in July. By September, the British commander, Colonel James Wilcox, had over 1,400 troops at his command, and he went on the offensive. One by one, the Ashanti states began to surrender. Yaa Asantewaa refused. When Wilcox gave her 4 days to appear in person, she sent a message: she would fight to the end. She escaped to Afinso, 15 miles away, and raised another rebellion with the Queen Mother there, Nana Yaa Asantewaa. When that was crushed, she fled north to Ahafo, always one step ahead of her hunters. For weeks, she was the last wanted person, the final holdout of a war that had already cost 2,000 Ashanti lives. And then a man from her own side betrayed her. In November 1900, just after she had finished her morning bath, British forces surrounded her. She did not resist. The Queen Mother of Ijisu, the commander of the Ashanti army, was taken. The British exiled her to the Seychelles Islands along with 15 of her chiefs. She was placed on a ship and sailed away from the land of the Golden Stool, never to return. The distant island was beautiful, white beaches, blue water, a tropical prison. She lived there for 20 years. She never found her grandson in exile. He had been sent elsewhere and she died without seeing his face again. She converted to Christianity, was baptized under a European name. But in her heart, she remained Yaa Asantewaa of Idweso, keeper of the stool, leader of the war. She died on October 17, 1921, at approximately 80 years of age. The British buried her in foreign soil, far from her ancestors, far from the forests that raised her. But 3 years after her death, when King Prempeh I was finally allowed to return from exile, he made one request before anything else: bring back the bones of Yaa Asantewaa. Her remains were exhumed and returned to the Ashanti nation for a proper royal burial. The war she started, the War of the Golden Stool, was the final chapter of the Anglo-Asante Wars, ending in formal British annexation of the Ashanti Empire on January 1, 1902. Her rebellion had been defeated, but the seed she planted did not die. 55 years after her arrest, on March 6, 1957, Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence from colonial rule. The new nation took its flag from the colors of the Ashanti Empire. The new parliament sat in the very land she had defended. And today, school children in Ghana learn her name. Statues of Yaa Asantewaa stand in Kumasi, in Accra, in London. The Yaa Asantewaa Centre in London's Ladbroke Grove bears her name. The museum at Ejisu honours her memory.